No audio.
Got him?
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Davis, for mentioning that. Okay, we'll move down to item 6.1. We have bi-monthly water report for July and August, and we have Jamie Austin to provide us the brief report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm pleased to present the bi-monthly water report for July and August of 2023. All water quality results during this period met regulatory requirements for the reporting period. And if I could get to scroll down to Appendix A on page 8, that shows the daily demands. We had a peak flow of 111.5 megaliters. That was on July 6th. We also hit that peak on July 20th. You'll notice on the appendix here, I have noted when stage 2 and stage 3 were implemented. You can see some immediate response to those going into place. There will be further information shared with the committee later through Laith when he does his talking of that. Next point would be Appendix C on page 10. This shows the average monthly demands. At the time of this report, July was wrapped up. We were actually up 9.9% in consumption in comparison to the same time last year. August ended up, the time of this report, it was down 2.6%. Just as an update to bring us to where we are today, though, August continued on that downward trend and ended up at 4.6% lower in comparison to the same time last year. And at the date of this report in September, we were actually down by 10.5% in comparison. Next points of interest would be Appendix E and F on page 12 and 13. This gets us to the lake level, so we'll stop here at Dixon. At the time of the report, Dixon was measuring 71% at the spillway. Fast forward to where we are today, Dixon was down to 64%. Now, to put that into some context, that blue line came pretty much right on the dotted line where we would start to need to pump. The rain came as of Sunday, and as a result of that, we've actually gone up by almost half a meter as far as volume in the lake goes, just over the last rainfalls we've had. So we are starting to see a bit of an upward trend due to the rain. We are optimistic, however, that's only as good as the rains that do come. The next page, if we go down to Appendix F, that is canal. And at the time, it was at 41%. Fast forward to this morning, we were at 31%. We still have quite a bit before we'd have to pump there, and we're actually seeing a flattening curve of the line. The rain is helping, but also we're seeing less consumption for that area of Mission that is supplied by canal specifically. And that does conclude the report. If there's any questions, I'm happy to speak to them.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Gibson.
In terms of conservation, what is the proportions, consistent proportions between commercial and industrial use and residential use?
Through the chair to the councillor, I don't have that information. I know Laith, when he speaks to his report, there is some discussion on that. I believe that might have been in his report as well. That information is available to us for Abbotsford. I'm sure Mission is able to pull that as well, but we're still doing the analysis on that.
I guess, through you, Chair, I guess the reason I'm asking is, we're big on conservation, but we're constrained because a number of our sectors, industrial sectors, they're not able to conserve because of the nature of their business, the way they're processing whatever they're doing. So it'd be interesting to kind of look at that paradigm and see what other ways that we can conserve at the same time without compromising our industrial sector, I guess that's why I'm asking.
Yes, that's a good point. I'm pretty confident Laith will be able to speak more to that during his presentation. I don't have that information.
No problem, just anecdotal really.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Morgan.
Question somewhat similar. Do we have a sense when we go to water restrictions, how much overall that changes the consumption? And it depends what stage we're at, but just in terms of, okay, we're talking about stage 2, stage 3, whatever. Do we have a sense of what we expect the change to be when we ask people to conserve?
Through the chair to the councillor. As far as specific targets that we're looking for in reduction.
The percentage of overall consumption?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Again, I think that's probably something Laith will be able to speak more to as far as the analysis he's done on the response to the stage implementations.
Right. A lot of pressure over there.
Yeah, not at all.
Thank you.
Under the bus.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? I just have a comment if there's no more questions. My comment was, and I think I asked you before, was just in regards to the fact that we've obviously had more water usage over the summer, and we're drawing more from the wells, and we're obviously not used as much from Dixon Lake. So they can give a brief explanation as to why you're doing that. It's just some.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. To the group, we have three sources of water. That's through the wells down in Abbotsford. We've got Canal Lake and Dixon Lake. Throughout the season, we're always juggling or prioritizing which source we should be using based on the demands at any specific one. Our sort of overall theme for this season has been to try to hold back water in Dixon to try to reduce the amount of pumping we need. So I spoke earlier that we got very close to that pumping point. The reason we prefer not to pump is that whole system relies on diesel. We don't have power lines or anything going 20 kilometers up the service road. So we try to hold back Dixon as much as possible. We do not want to pump if we can. We then flip to the other two sources and see how they're doing. So the wells have, although we didn't get a whole lot of return on the aquifer over the winter, the wells have been performing reasonably well, and they've been a solid workhorse as far as supplying water. We've also been leaning a bit more on Canal Lake. Other things we've done specific to the wells, we've done a lot of infrastructure work on those where we've actually lowered the wells so we can get deeper into the aquifer. It's within the casing of the well, we're able to do that. So we've done a bit of exploration, I suppose, by dropping these wells a bit further. We're finding we have an ample supply down there to help us along.
Thank you. I appreciate those responses and the management of our system. I appreciate that. Thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
I just want to also, and Lathe will get into a little bit, our aquifer is at lowest level it's been. Okay, so we're into some new ground here on our aquifer. And so we are monitoring very closely. And as we get into Lay's report later on, we want to start exploring what the next stages would be, like a stage 4. Who's it impacting? What areas we're trying to focus in on to get reductions. And with Lay's report, you'll see there's a letter attached there from the province asking all water users to reduce consumption. I think one of the stages coming up here too is sending a letter to the province of not just sending the letters out, but doing some enforcement on that to make sure that the waters is that their letters are being followed, and that drinking water is a higher priority than some other uses. And so I think that there's certainly some more work needed on that, but we can see with climate change, more water being used, and letters, we're in a drought across the province. We need to adapt to that, and we need to understand what our next stages of restriction would look like. And this is the time to do that work in advance, because even if we get some heavy rains, aquifers don't generally fill up very quickly. A lot of it flows down rivers and creeks out to the ocean. A certain amount gets absorbed in. So we need to think about not just today, but over the future here until the aquifer is fully charged.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you for your comments, Rob. Okay, the next thing, we're finished with that report. We'll go to the bi-monthly 6.2 and bi-monthly James plant report, and we'll have Jimmy Austin as well.
Thank you again, Chair. I'm pleased to present the bi-monthly James plant report for July and August of 2023. Plant met all regulatory parameters for this reporting period, and as of August 22nd, the date of the report, 4,800 tons of biosolids have left the facility. If we could go to page 24, thank you. We can see the ammonia concentration, and you can see we're well below the curve. It's a good spot for us to be in, and that is the August result that is present. And that does conclude the report if there's any questions.
Are there any questions, Council? Council Gibson.
As I tell students, there's no such thing as a dumb question, only a dumb answer. So maybe this was asked before. Why are those like that? Why are they curved like that? Like, why are they like this?
Which graphs were you
I think
Why are
that's
they
the
like that?
flow.
Like, why are they?
Yeah.
Why are they like? Why aren't they straight across? Why are they like this?
Yeah. Can you Sorry, Rob, can you confirm? Is that?
It's flow.
That's flow. Okay, yeah, no, I can speak.
And why are they like little U's like that?
Yeah, through the chair to the councillor, what you're seeing is peaks in flow coming into the facility, so that's water coming into the plant. What you're seeing there, those kind of lines where the divisions are, that's the start of a new year, and that coincides with the wet period. So when we get heavy rainfall, it's not uncommon for every wastewater collection system to take in some rainwater. So what you're seeing is the inflow of rainwater coming in, and then you'll see it drops down when we get back into the dry season and we flatline for a while, then we get back into the wet season and it's up and down. It's called inflow infiltration. It's typical of what you see.
Okay.
I think
Go ahead,
it's a
Rob.
good question. I hope my answer was good.
No,
It's a
Go
great
ahead.
question, and I'll put some context to this, and to compare ourselves to other treatment plants, for example. When we look at our sanitary network, we have what's called inflow and infiltration into the system. Some of it is direct water, like catch basins that are actually connected to our storm system, or our sanitary system. And then we have infiltration. As the water table builds up around your pipes, a certain amount comes in the joints. And you can see here that in the end of 2021, we had a very high peak. And that coincided with our extreme weather event that occurred and all the flooding. And when we see water now is above the road in certain areas or high, some of it comes in the top of the manholes, lids, around the holes in the lids. But overall, you know, when your average day, your line that goes like this, and your peaks are less than 2 times your average day, you have a tight system. In other locations where they've had a combined sewer drainage infrastructure and then they separated, they're up at like 5, 6, 7 times their average flow. So overall, I know Abbotsford and Mission have done a really good job of doing CCTV inspections, making sure we monitor our inflow and infiltration, make sure our system is as tight as possible in order so that we're not treating fresh water at the treatment plant. So we keep an eye on this. We have a very tight system overall compared to other local governments.
Thank you, Rob, for that explanation.
That's a pretty good answer, okay.
That was excellent. Are there any other questions before we move on?
It's interesting.
Okay, we'll now move on. Thanks, Jamie, for your report.
Thank you.
And we'll move on now to the financial statements, item 6.3 on page 25, and we have Randy here, Randy Menard. Randy.
So looking at the results to the end of July, I'll start with water operating. The water operating results, we're not seeing any significant variance from budget. As reported in previous months, we did have some repairs earlier in the year that were dealt with. That was causing a slight negative variance, and the positive variance came in the water conservation area, so a little bit less spent than budgeted there. On the sewer operating side of things, we do have a significant positive variance, $800,000. Similar reasons to what's been presented in previous months. Most of that positive variance is really due to one-time revenues that we're seeing. Unfortunately, those not something that will continue into next year for the budget, but we are seeing some nice cash inflow this year. On the water capital side of things, we've spent $1 million to the end of July 31st on projects with total budget of 15.6, and on the sewer side of things, spent $2.3 million on projects with total budget of $10 million. And that concludes that report.
Are there any questions? Any questions at all? Okay, thank you very much. We don't have recommendations, so we'll move on. Thank you. I don't think there's any going well. Things are going well. Can't complain. Next item, 6.4, stage water restrictions. We have an update, page 34. We have Lathan. How do you pronounce your last name?
Furati.
Verratti. Okay, thank you.
So, through the chair, I'll just introduce Lave to the committee here. Lave joined us earlier this year. He's a professional engineer. He's filled our senior water engineer role, which was vacant for many years. And he has a doctorate degree. So go ahead, Lave.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So, due to the ongoing drought, we
implemented stage 2 water restrictions on July 21st. And 2 weeks later, on August 4th, those were escalated to stage 3. We also extended the period of water restrictions to the end of October 31st. At this time, staff are documenting the lessons learned, haven't been through this type of stage 3 before, for the use of, for potential refinement to our bylaw and to our approach in general moving forward. And lastly, staff are monitoring the available water resources closely and preparing contingencies accordingly. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mayor Siemens.
So we have that challenge with the aquifer not recharging. Is the plant along the Fraser, is that an issue that would be of concern there, or is that issue pretty much mitigated?
Through the chair, the purpose of locating those wells is to allow recharge of the aquifer from the Fraser. So based on that and the details of the design, it should alleviate greatly that particular constraint. So it would basically decouple our supply from Abbotsford Sumas aquifer and basically from this other source.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rob.
And
Yes.
just to supplement that too, part of providing a resiliency for a water system is looking at our water sources. So we've got some water sources that are recharged at lakes. Some are in the Abbotsford aquifer, and in this case, this wells beside the Fraser River is coming from another aquifer that is dependent on the Fraser River. So it's about spreading your risks across the municipality so that if you end up having a fire or something up on that source, you can switch to other sources. If aquifer levels are down, then you're relying on those other sources. So it's about spreading the risk around, and as well as where you're getting your water from, because you could end up having, as we've seen before, a landslide on Norrish that takes out the transmission main, now you're relying on your other sources. So it's spreading your sources out, different sources of water, and that improves your resilience.
Yeah, I agree with that. Very well done. Well done. Go ahead, Councilman Morgenstern.
You mentioned gathering lessons learned. Are you able to share anything at this stage about lessons learned?
Through the chair, yes, I believe we could. If you have any specific questions, we could address those.
Well, I'd be looking for you to tell me.
Right. So the purpose of stage restrictions are to address discretionary outdoor use. That's the intent. And we have evidence that shows that our stage restrictions have been moderately successful in curtailing demands when we anticipated that they would otherwise increase dramatically. So, however, there's a lot of room for improvement. One of those major areas that we could improve is to tighten down on the truly either waste or truly non-essential uses, such as residential lawn irrigation, without impacting businesses. So the implementation of restrictions generally is anticipated to, without proper education, result in resentment and imposes an annoyance on the population, but it's intended to prevent a more serious condition. What we don't want to do is we want to basically get the biggest bang for our buck when we are trying to conserve water. And so the way things are written now, we may be being suboptimal in how we do things. For an example I would give would be for a little mom and pop pressure washing business to impact their business when in aggregate they are negligible overall, would represent perhaps an opportunity to improve, where we could
prioritize formally other less essential uses where we would double our efforts to reduce there.
Fair to say, lawn sprinkling is the biggest sort of culprit, if I can use that word. And if you had full compliance there, it would make the biggest difference. That's my informal impression. Is that right?
Through the chair, correct. I can give you some examples. So I sit now on the Regional Engineering Advisory Committee's water subcommittee for the REAC for Metro Vancouver, and so I've been told there are efforts, for example, in Coquitlam, where they have decided to implement a midnight to 7 a.m. shift for surveillance purposes. Right? There's also other opportunities which we will be able to exploit in the fullness of time with our AMI system to be able to direct where our attention should be placed.
AMI is?
Sorry, the advanced meter infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Go ahead, Rob.
just to supplement that, the city has what's referred to as, City of Abbotsford has smart meters. And smart meters not only keep track of volume, it keeps the data within there and transfers that data when you use that water during the day. And so by using that technology, you can understand where your water usage is. Right now, some of our AMI, or some of our smart meters have come to the end of their life and are being replaced right now. So when Leigh says we're getting some information, we haven't got a complete system. Over the next 6 months to a year, the system will be upgraded. So hopefully by next summer, we'll be able to use that technology to help focus in on who's still watering their lawns. And that's the benefit of a smart metering infrastructure is, one, you can see who's using the water. Two, you can see who's using the water and maybe there's a leak there that's water that's being wasted and can then be eliminated by letting people know about the leak.
Good. I very much appreciate that, the use of data to better understand what's going on so we can set policies better, very valuable. So thank you, and we'll look forward to anything else.
No, thank you for the report. I know that I was very impressed with the change from July to August. Obviously, the program was working, but you said there's always room for improvement. But I thank you for the report, and it's well done, and it shows it can work. We need ways to go. I know in Mission that we've just accepted the idea of putting in water meters. It's going to be a voluntary program, but we've got to get the bylaws in front of the council. Then once that's done, we'll roll out the program. So there's an incentivization, and I appreciate your comments about the type of meter readers, because I think we have smart meters. I think we need to make sure we're on the same page as you with them. So go ahead, Councilor.
I was asked, our current system is normally twice a week, and then we cut down to once a week, and then we cut down to no watering at all. I was asked if, because we're only doing 2 days a week, if instead of doing it that way, we had 1/7 of the community watering on their day. So 1/7 water on Monday, 1/7 water on Tuesday. You know where I'm going with this? So you wouldn't get the peaks on the Tuesday and let's see, I think we're Thursday and Sunday at our house. Okay, so those are the peak period, and then somebody else is Wednesday and Saturday, right? Wednesday and Saturday. So the question was asked to me is, why don't you guys spread it out throughout the week so you don't have the peaks on Wednesday, the peaks on Sunday? I didn't have an answer for them. See the question? They're saying, why don't you spread it throughout the whole week so everybody has 1/7 so you don't get the peaks? I didn't have an answer for that. Well, is that too complicated, or doesn't it make any difference?
Just my response would be that would be hard to chase down, track people, keep on top of
Well,
it.
that's part of the
People
problem,
use
to
their money.
administer it, yeah.
I think that's probably the least times that the water is being consumed by the people in their households. That makes the most sense. Why it's at that time, those hours are, but go ahead, Ron.
And one reason too is the days in between it allows for our major reservoirs to fill up totally for firefighting purposes as well as providing a daily.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your report. If there's no other questions, we'll now move forward. The next item on our agenda is at 6.
Go ahead. Wait, sorry, it's working now? There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Go ahead.
I'll be talking through the 2024 proposed financial plan, start with operating, joint water and sewer, and then we'll move on to capital. As we do each year, as we're setting up the plan for the next year, we take a look at any required economic adjustments. We look at projected hydro, fuel, gas prices. We look at property insurance, any contracts that we're aware of. We look at any external regulations that might be changing or any other types of changes that might be impacting the systems, and we take a look at priorities.
Right.
So FTE is one of those that we'll be looking at. So starting at joint water, we don't have any recommended changes to the revenue budget, but for the expenditure budget, we're looking at a $476,000 increase. That's broken down on this slide here. Similar to last year, we've got some challenges with property insurance. So 58% increase over the budget for last year. So $195,000 is the single largest pressure that we're facing. We also have a new water planning engineer that's included in the general services area at 166. We had some challenges with our security for the water plant, having to replace that midway this year, and are facing significantly heightened costs, and that's being built into next year's budget at a cost of $130,000. And then the water conservation item there on the bottom is just a one-time item that fell off the budget as we moved from 2023 into 2024. When we look at a visual display of this at the different reporting categories that we use, you can see the general services is the one that's moved up there for the reasons that I mentioned. Maintenance, you'll see, is also going up a little bit there. We took a look at equipment charges that were coming through there historically and realized that there was some adjustment that needed to be made there. Other than that, the only other thing I'll mention here is water conservation, where you see a slight dip, and those were some one-time items that were just falling off the budget as we moved into the next year. So if we look at the municipal contribution over the next 5 years, I've explained the difference between 2023 and 2024. It's relatively flat for the other 4 years, with the exception of moving from 2026 to 27, and that's where we've incorporated some provision for operating costs for when we have the new water source come on stream. Moving over to joint sewer, again, no proposed change to the revenue budget. That increased revenue we're seeing this year is due to one-time causes, so we're leaving that flat. The expenditure budget has $336,000 proposed increase, and I've broken that down on this next slide here. Once again, property insurance, stealing to show here, so $390,000 increase in that area. We've made some adjustments for salaries and benefits. On biosolids management, a slight decrease there. That's because over 2022 and 2020, the first part of this year, 2023, we were experiencing some fuel and route delay surcharges on the contract costs for that particular function. Those have gone away now, and we expect that to persist through 2024. So that explains the difference there. And the last item, the outfall monitoring program, is a line item in our budget that tends to fluctuate from year to year depending on requirements in any given year. And that will have a decrease of $92,000 moving into 2024. So looking at this visual representation of that, the significant increase in general services from the property insurance is shown there. You see the slight decrease in biosolids management that I mentioned as well. Those are kind of the key things on this slide. The municipal contribution for 5 years is relatively flat. The main item there being the increase from 23 to 24, and I've covered the reasons for that one. So moving over to the capital plan, this is in water. The 5-year total of proposed capital is $106.3 million. We've also broken out on the right side of this slide the new water supply, because the vast majority of that 5-year total is the new water supply at $81.4 million. The 10 million in year one is for design. The 71.4 in 2025 is for the commitment we'll have to make to construction at that time, although the actual expenditure of those funds will be phased over a couple of years, 2 to 3 years. And I will mention also that that $81.4 million will be funded to a large extent, about $63 million, I believe, by a grant that's been received for that project. Moving to sewer, we've got a 5-year total of $93.7 million. And the year one amount for sewer is $7 million. I have noted on the bottom of this slide and the previous slide, potential projected carry forwards of work in progress from this year. Those are items that we will be reviewing closely at the end of the year to verify whether all of that needs to be carried forward or some of it needs to be reprioritized into future years. So in summary, on the operating side of things, the joint water contribution is planned at 6.6 million, sewer at 6.1, and then the 5-year totals for capital, joint water 106 million, with over 80 of that being the water source, and then joint sewer at 93.7. So what the recommendation here is that the committee authorize staff to include the operating and capital water and sewer financial plans with the City of Abbotsford and the City of Mission's draft consolidated financial plans as required.
It is a recommendation. I'll put it on the floor before we take questions. I have a mover, moved by Mayor Siemens. And just before I know I have a second, Councilor Worthington. Can I have any questions in regards to the draft financial plan? Go ahead, Councilor Worthington.
So, noticing two different locations that property insurance is up by 15%. We know that insurance premiums are going crazy. So I'm sure you've thought this through. So just tell me your thinking. The nature of insurance is we should only insure things we can't really afford to cover ourselves. So I don't need to buy insurance on the 9-volt battery that they want to sell me when I go to the store, but I do need to buy insurance on my house. So how's the city thinking about that? And as rates go crazy and increase so dramatically, should we be thinking about insurance differently in terms of perhaps higher deductibles or self-insuring?
I can give a partial answer to that, and then I might defer and see if there's a further answer to that. I can't say that I know that the city looked at that type of question a number of years ago and decided to self-insure to a higher degree because they realized that it was more cost-effective overall to be able to take on a larger risk for the first, I think it was $1 million of claims. So there has been some of that done a number of years ago, and I'm not sure if Mr. Basadi would have more to add to that.
Through the chair, no, I think Randy covered mostly. And going back to your question, Councillor, we only insure the large item that needs to be insured, not the small equipment for that matter. Buildings, of course, there's a liability insurance as well. Insurance is actually, it goes in a cycle. For example, it doesn't mean it's going to keep going up. Eventually, when the market started to rebound itself, for example, right now, when insurance companies start to invest their investment, they start earning more on that, meaning it will help to drop the premium, because as the premium prices go up, less and less folks are into insurance and they don't insure as much, or they reduce the amount they're insuring it for. So eventually it started to come down. So we are expecting, with the inflation and the higher interest rate and overall the changes that are taking place in North America, we expect maybe insurance will start to come down in 2025 or 2026. What we have seen this year, 2023 and 2024, next year, those are probably one of the highest we're seeing. As for the information as we know as of now. So other cities are facing a similar trend as well.
Yes.
And what we are expecting is it's going to peak, probably 2024 will be the peak, and then it will start to come down. How much, that's still, and possibly seeing if there will be any other natural disasters, fires, flooding, all those played a big role by we're seeing major increase in insurance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that quick answer. Are there any other questions from the floor? Now we have a mover and a seconder, or we have Mayor Siemens and Councilor Worthington, first and second. All those in favor of the development? Thank you. There are no other items, new business. I'll call for adjournment. Moved by Mayor Siemens and seconded by Councilor Worthington, Councilor Gibson. And we all those in favor of adjournment. That was quick. Thank you for your report. Your answer to questions. I didn't want to get into 25 years. So why was that in there? Oh, you have long council meetings too? Oh, I'm